Hello everybody, and welcome to my discussion on Sonic Movie 2 spoilers. This video is going to go into some aspects that people probably would want to avoid before they've seen the film themselves, as well as talking about my speculation on where the third film may go based on what we uncover in this film. As such, I would highly recommend that you don't watch this video if you haven't seen the film and wish to soon. Also, if you still want to hear some of my opinions and get a grasp on what the film might hold for you, my first video on this topic does not contain any spoilers and is safe for your viewing. As such, I'm going to assume that you either have seen the film or at least my first video for the sake of this one. With that out of the way, let's get in to some of the spicier topics. Tails, right, so I was saying Tails was decent, he had nice moments, but it felt a little bit hand-fisted, and what I meant was his reasons for coming and staying. The first film, I thought someone had sent him, maybe even Longclaw, but no, what actually happened is Tails, with all of his genius tech, was monitoring, I don't know, electric-magnetic fields for fun, and when Sonic caused the big sonic boom in the first movie, that made Tails interested in where the source was, and through that, he was able to somehow observe all the events of the first film from that point onwards, and he became idealistic towards Sonic. Saw him as a hero because he was weird, but he owned it. And Tails, on the other hand, was weird because his mutant two tails and everything like that, and was made fun of it, and he said that he was pretty isolated in his village, which is quite accurately taken from his actual backstory, so that was cool. And it was also a way of the film team letting us know he doesn't really have any attachments to stick around with where he comes from. They don't really talk about his parents or anything like that, which is a bit weird. Was he an orphan, or did his parents hate him? If they did, they really didn't go into it enough. But the point is, he thought Sonic was cool, and he didn't really like his home. So once he discovered people were hunting for Sonic, he said, oh, I'm going to go over and save him. Well, not save him, warn him. And that's what he does. And his plan is, after he warns Sonic that he's going to leave, but Sonic tells him to stick along, and through that they become friends. And then Sonic says, you can stay here forever if you like, and Tails basically agrees immediately when he explains to Sonic that his home sucks, basically. And that's about it. Bada bing, bada boom, Tails is here and he's here to stay. So that's what I meant when I said it was pretty hand waved off. It's not gone into massive detail. It doesn't have to be either. A lot of people probably just wanted Tails to be on the team and get in there, but it is something that if you're really focused on keeping track of everything, you'll probably think could have got a bit more development time. Another concern I have for perhaps the future of the movies rather than this one itself is character bloat. We had a lot of different humans showing up, and not all of them will return, but I fear some of them will. And if we just keep doing this each film, where we add more and more human characters and they come back, but then we add more on top of that each time and don't do a whole lot with the ones we already have, we're just going to be wasting more and more time in scenes like the wedding instead of getting the more impactful, story relevant ones that we're wanting to see. Gun, G-U-N, from the games is established in this film, and the Olive Garden man from the first film turns out to be the movie's version of the Gun Commander from the games, which it didn't really click with me until this film that that's who he was supposed to be. Very different personality, but I think he's the movie counterpart of him. Anyway, so GUN is established, and as a part of that, there's a undercover agent who is the husband-to-be to Maddie's wife, and the only reason he was there was to get closer to Sonic's sphere of family and friends. He was okay. There was nothing wrong with him, really. He sort of gets written out of the story abruptly, and then you don't see him again for the rest of it. And I feel like he's going to be a returning character in the next movie to be our inside man in Gun. If they do that, then they need to give him more, but I also don't want him taking away from Sonic and Knuckles and everything like that. It's really tough. I'm just concerned we're adding way too many characters that can't do super important things. I could be proven wrong, but that is another concern of mine, that we're getting a lot of human characters and a lot of character bloat, and it could become messy if we keep bringing them back. For example, Wade, a police officer, I forgot Wade was a thing until I saw him in this film. I completely forgot he was a guy, and I didn't expect him to come back in any meaningful way. He does have a funny interrogation scene, but that's about it. And he didn't really need to be there. It wasn't overly offensive. He didn't waste time, and he was funny for some of that. But it's just, again, the precedent of if we keep doing this and we keep bringing everybody back, it's going to negatively affect the content in the film, in my opinion. The Echidna tribe got some expanded attention in this film, and most people would know that new Echidna lore in Sonic these days is rare to come by, so the few times we do get to see more, I'm always very interested. The Echidnas are one of the more interesting aspects of the Sonic series in general, in my opinion. They've been understated since Sonic 3, and we've seen the effect of some of their decisions throughout numerous games and expanded media, but we don't usually get a focused look on them. That is still kind of true here, despite the expanded role they have, unfortunately. However, it was nice to see what we did get. In the movie here, the Echidnas are a warring tribe that are seeking the power of the Emeralds for dominance. Now, the perspective we get is biased, but we hear it from two sides. So one of Knuckles' recountings and one from Longclaw, which we'll get into in a second. But from what I can gather, trying to remove bias, is the Echidnas were using the Emerald power for war, triumph, and dominance, though they may have seen it as it was their rightful power and they were doing it to help their tribe. However, others saw it as warmongering and wanton destruction. It's unclear how true that is. It was true to an extent, obviously, but we don't know if it was over-exaggerated, since all the parties involved, unfortunately, are revealed to be dead. Knuckles is the last Echidna because the rest of them went to war to find Longclaw, who belonged to a clan of owls that were the rivals of the Echidna. That was unexpected, but it's why in the first film we see all those Echidnas going after Longclaw. However, what's really silly, in my opinion, about that is that somehow Longclaw, who was already wounded, is implied to have killed all of the fully healthy and combat-trained Echidnas, including Knuckles' father, just like that, and then I guess she died of her wounds afterwards alone. I don't buy it. One versus many. I feel like that was not considered as much. Perhaps it was something that slipped through the gaps as they were writing the script. Or they intended it, but if they intended it, yeah, I don't think that was good at all. Not impressed with that one. The Chaos Emeralds play into all of that, and in the films they work quite differently from how we are used to. So here, there are still 7, but we're unsure of what they are capable of individually, because the main focus for them now is how the Echidna forged 7 into 1 to make the Master Emerald. The Master Emerald is infinite energy, unlimited capabilities, a lot like what the games do, but we don't know what the Chaos Emeralds can do on their own. And like I said, the Master Emerald is just all 7 emeralds in one here. It's not a separate entity. So with that in mind, we also see what the Master Emerald can do for a user, where it makes them powerful, able to topple armies, which is, nice, but I feel like we lose some of the magic of the 7 emeralds being their own power sources. I understand why this isn't done, because if there were 7 emeralds and they had to be collected all the time in the films, that would waste a lot of screen time, and if it was just hand-waved off, then people would say, why even mention it in the first place? So I can see why they did it, and it makes the Master Emerald even more central. However, the Echidna we see in the flashback using the Master Emerald loses it when he gets taken down by an owl, like a headbutt, and it just goes. So it's all powerful, and yet at the same time somehow easy to lose, and we see that again later on when Robotnik gets his hands on it. It also is knocked out of him relatively easily, despite the power it gives the user, so I guess it doesn't give you much defense. The downside of this is that Chaos is unlikely to factor in the films. He still can, if they change basically everything about the origin story of Chaos, including the relationship to the Echidnas, which was a big part of it. And I think that's all unlikely. The more likely thing is that Chaos simply will not be making an appearance in the films, which is, in my opinion, a huge letdown. Knuckles, Tails, and Sonic are newly united in the films, and it would have been really great if they could have explored their dynamic as a trio in an entire film, so that we don't have to rush any more of their progression and their friendship building and all of that. And Chaos's plotline would have been an amazing one for that, since Chaos isn't going to join them after the fact. He isn't going to stick around after the fact. He's a uniting focus that doesn't even need to be in the beginning of a film, and it can still create all sorts of amazing set pieces. But we're not going to get Chaos, which means we're not going to get Tikal. We're not going to get our legend Big the Cat, presumably. You know, all of that stuff is gone, and that is super unfortunate, especially because the bonding time for the trio is in jeopardy based on what we see at the end of this film, but we'll get to that in a second. Dr. Robotnik getting the Master Emerald is one of the highlights of the film. It sort of kicks the action up by 10, despite the action already being pretty high by the time he grabs it. There's this really great section in a labyrinth-like zone with Knuckles and Robotnik going through all the traps and accidentally getting each other's way and showing one another up. And the dialogue's pretty funny, the visuals are pretty funny. I think that was all handled great. Really good moment for the film. Sonic finds his way there just as they're about to grab the Master Emerald. And in that moment, we get a fight between Sonic and Knuckles. A pretty good fight. And it's another moment in the film where we get to see Knuckles sort of question, only briefly rather, he questions perhaps the character of Robotnik and his opposition. As Knuckles is not evil, he has a lot of sense of honor and respect for combat and his opponents. So as he keeps on entering scenarios that involve both Robotnik and Sonic, he's slowly thinking, this Robotnik doesn't seem to be as genuine perhaps as he made it out to be. And of course, it's confirmed when he watches Robotnik take the Master Emerald from under his nose and leave him to drown, which he would have if Sonic didn't help him. After that, the two of them have to recollect their thoughts on a beach whilst Robotnik flies off, as the Master Emerald gives him basically god powers. Instead of going super, he goes all green and he turns thoughts into power. But the Emerald stated to be able to do that, which was an excellent touch and a reference to Tikal's chant that the Emeralds turn thoughts into power. So he's able to think something and make it happen. But meanwhile, Sonic and Knuckles are on the beach together, and they have a nice moment where Knuckles is super depressed, everything's gone wrong and he's failed, and Sonic tries to lift him up. Now, Sonic just pelts him a lot with sand, and it's alright. I would have liked to give Knuckles a second to grieve himself before that happened. Instead, it just happened straight away, but whatever, we've got films to see. With the Emerald power, we get to see Robotnik just do whatever he wanted, and it's a pretty good performance on Jim Carrey's side of things. Excellently done, that whole section. I was thinking it was a bit strange how he was all floating everywhere and omnipresent and whatever. It was a hard sell, but they did sell it to me. The performance was good enough to where I got over that and just thought it was interesting to watch. Now, what he does is that Gun come after him. Tom and Maddie and the Gun commander all go over to wherever the Mean Bean coffee is to find Robotnik, and they're going to try and shoot him. But he flies up into the sky and makes a tornado of metal scraps from their military vehicles to form the Death Egg robot. Now, that was almost spoiled in the trailers, but they cut it in just the right way to where you wouldn't see that unless you watched the later trailers, which I didn't. Again, it was so much more rewarding not to watch all the subsequent trailers. I feel like they spoiled way too much. But anyway, he builds the Death Egg robot, and that scene and what happens there is all great. His acting's great, what he does is great, but the offensive power isn't understated for it either. It's definitely a dangerous menace. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles end up teaming up to take it out. At first, they are attacking independently and it's not working out. Then they say, okay, we'll work together. Standard stuff, but it works, and we get to see their skill sets work in tandem, and it was nice to see. The dialogue's pretty good as well. Robotnik's focus on Sonic gets very accelerated in this scene. You would think they would have sprinkled it in a little bit more, and I guess they kind of showed he disliked Sonic, but it kind of comes out of nowhere, in my opinion, how much Robotnik wants to get Sonic, to the point where he jeopardizes his easy victory to try and do so. But they wanted him to be there, so he's there, and it's not a bad angle for Robotnik. I just think they could have made that change a bit more obvious. Eventually, they manage to get into the Death Egg, and Knuckles punches the Master Emerald out of Eggman, and they all fall out of it, but the Death Egg robot still has enough auxiliary power to function without it, so they're all going to die, basically. And then the Master Emerald shatters into the 7 Chaos Emeralds, which are titchy in the films. They look like plastic toys from a discount store. I very much disagree with the way they are presented there. Even in the flashback, I'm pretty sure they were shown to be bigger than that. They were so small. But anyway, they fall out, and Sonic is thinking really hard because he's about to die, and using Thoughts into Power, the Emeralds activate, and he becomes Supersonic. Supersonic here felt very much like a Marvel movie, sort of the superheroes are beginning to win sort of moment. Very overpowered finishing move, finishing type of character. He basically runs circles around the Death Egg robot, and it doesn't last long against him. And for a film, for the climax of a film, thematically it works. Like, in isolation, that's okay. The problem is that this makes writing Supersonic in the future a difficult task. Because in the games, the Death Egg robot was able to attack and challenge Supersonic. Here, it could not do that. He effortlessly dismantles it. So the problem that creates is, how do we challenge Sonic in the future now? And we'll get into that just in a bit, but before we do, I want to mention that it also appears Robotnik may be dead, because he takes a huge fall. No one locates him after the impact, which could mean he crawled away and his robots fixed him, or it could mean he's dead. I don't know what they'll do, but Robotnik's definitely out of the count after that, and Sonic's all happy about it. And Tom, the policeman, has a word with Sonic, and Sonic calls him Dad, which, for the film and the target audience and the type of Sonic they're going with, there it is. Again, a pretty Marvel superhero thing. Not really my style, but, it's there. And we also see at the ending that Tails and Knuckles are going to be living with Sonic, Maddie, and Tom as a family sort of thing. They're playing baseball. And Knuckles was still pretty funny at that point with his mannerisms and dialogue. But what was interesting about that is, in their sort of portable fridge, they had the Master Emerald. So they are keeping it with them, which is feeding back into what I was talking about with Supersonic. They have the Master Emerald on hand, so theoretically they could go super whenever they wanted, which is going to make threats very hard to do. There's numerous ways they might go about that, of course, one of which, that I hope they don't, is Sonic just chooses not to do it because he feels he's not responsible enough, which is a line they drop near the end about responsibility and being ready and waiting. It's a nice message, but there was no downside to him using Supersonic's powers at all, and they've got it right on them. There's no reason to watch someone suffer when he could just go super and stop them. So that's pretty, I don't know how they're going to handle that. They're probably just going to say they have the Master Emerald stolen or something, but I wouldn't have written yourself into that corner to begin with, personally. And that brings us to the final scene of the film, where Gun Commander and his troopers are examining the Death Egg wreckage. We see that Agent Stone is in disguise as a GUN agent, and one of the agents talks to the commander about the recently uncovered dossier, Project Shadow, that's 50 years old. And then we see Shadow being awakened in his capsule. This creates a lot of potential problems that leaves me seriously concerned about the direction the films might go in after this point. I should also note, Shadow's my favourite character. I have no bias against his inclusion at all, but as a result of him being my favourite character, that means I'm worried they won't do him justice. His design, for instance, is almost one-to-one to Sonic's, taking on the more childlike appearance because Sonic's more childlike. He's still got, his colour scheme and his quills perk up a little bit. I wouldn't have made him look so similar to Sonic personally. Knuckles has his own body type and look. Shadow is obviously going to be similar in some ways to Sonic, but I do think they should have given him his own structure. The kiddie look, again, well, we only saw him asleep, unconscious. I could be completely wrong, but from what I did see, yeah, I was not super happy about that. However, more importantly, Shadow is definitely in the third film. There's no way he's not. Whoever was saying, oh, it's just, clickbait. No, he's in the film. Come on, let's be real. They still said it was 50 years ago. In the film world, how is that possible? How is Gerald, if he's even a character, going to have designed Shadow? Because there wasn't a mural with Supersonic, there wasn't the Master Emerald, Chaos Emeralds defined. Chaos doesn't exist, he didn't build the artificial chaos. There's none of that history from Sonic 3 and Sonic Adventure is there. So how did Gerald somehow discover interdimensional travel to see Sonic, except he's not going to see Sonic because Sonic wasn't born yet, to get these chaos abilities researched that, again, he probably wouldn't have been able to because they would have been in the Master Emerald that the Echidnas had, and I seriously doubt he travelled and met the Echidnas. If he did, cool, but in that case, how did no one else on Earth discover technology to travel to other dimensions? Gun wasn't formed yet, so they weren't even aware of it. How does Robotnik not know about it? Does his grandfather not have a diary? There's so many questions that, yeah, they could work around it and rejig some of it, but it will still make some problems. Like I said, Shadow's appearance and abilities make no sense in this world from a human perspective. How on earth did Gerald do any of that? The Space Colony arc clearly doesn't exist, and if it did, that's going to feel like it came out of nowhere. Maria? Yeah, Maria? Ooh, I don't see how Maria's going to exist. Sure, she could have existed when Gerald was alive, right? Again, if Gerald's a character. Presumably no Space Colony arc, so I guess she's just going to be on an IV drip or something. But if Shadow is in a secret facility, that means they still would have the records, which clearly they do, now that I think about it, because they had the dossier, so Robotnik would know about it. If Robotnik's dead, then that's not a link. If Robotnik's alive, it's going to be really weird that he was so surprised about Sonic the Hedgehog in the first film if he had a diary from his grandfather about Shadow. And if he didn't have that diary, why did Gerald not... God, there's just so many things that won't add up. Now, Shadow's personality I'm less worried about because Knuckles was handled respectfully, it was well done, they got the comedy they wanted without jeopardizing the character, which is how Knuckles used to be handled. So I'm sure, or at least I hope, that Shadow will be given the same amount of consideration in his character, where if they do want to do edgy memes, they will put them in without jeopardizing the rest of his character. But such big elements of his character like Maria, I feel like won't be able to be done properly and may just be removed completely. There's a big risk that Shadow might just be used as a villain, which would be disappointing. If it's done well, it's done well, but obviously in the game, Shadow was never really a villain, so it would be sad to see him just become a villain in the film if they did that. And if they instead make him, you know, join the good guys afterwards, or at least become friendly to them, we just did that with Knuckles. We just did that. It's going to feel super redundant to do it again. Shadow will probably be able to go super, so one of the ways they could counterbalance Sonic having superpowers on deck is that Shadow can also go super. Alternatively, what they'll do is they have to team up to fight something else. I doubt it would be the Bio Lizard. I was talking to someone, we were joking it could be the Black Arms and Black Doom from Shadow's game, which for a movie, especially a Marvel Endgame styled movie, you could see that invasion, right? It would actually kind of make sense. Will they do that? I have no idea. I doubt it. I doubt it. So with all that said, the third film, I am concerned it won't be able to hold up to this one, because whilst we're going to have more of the game elements now, we've cut out Chaos, which I felt was going to be a perfect movie type of storyline, you know, like a Godzilla kind of thing, but also the bonding of Sonic, Tails, Knuckles. But that's all gone. It's completely gone. And we're going to Shadow, but the world so far has not been set up to, one, suggest he was possible, and to, two, make his arrival have the weight it probably should, because it's going to be missing so many elements and he might have to be one way or the other. Ultimately, my view of where the movie could go is one of concern. That would be the overall way I could wrap it up. It's concern. I'm not sure about what's going on with Shadow. I'm not sure what's going on with the lore that built up Sonic Adventure 2. Of course, Shadow doesn't have to use the Sonic Adventure 2 storyline at all. It may not be about his memory, Maria, the past, the Eclipse canon. It could be completely different. It could even be merged with Chaos's story. Who knows? I'm just concerned about how it will be handled if the world's ready. Knuckles and Tails are kind of getting swept under the rug. And Tails, in this very film, kind of got stepped on by Knuckles anyway, so that's unfortunate for him. Maybe the Knuckles show will have some insights into that, or perhaps the point of the Knuckles show is to give Knuckles more development on his own. I don't know. But I'm a little bit concerned about the film. I'm a little bit concerned about the escalation of power. But the second film in isolation, or including the first film and the second film was a good improvement with good scenes, good payoffs, but I'm worried that due to how much they used it as a power move, it's going to cripple them down the line. Anyway, I know that a lot of you guys have your own thoughts on this topic. Since it took me a while to get this video out, I've been able to read some of your early opinions on it, and I'm sure the discussion is going to be quite thorough. So I'm going to open the floor to you guys now and wrap it up on my end. Thanks for watching this video. Unscripted, but I felt like it was just the best way to get my raw opinions out of the film. I hope that wasn't too much of a struggle to sit through, and I'm looking forward to the conversations, hopefully, that will be going on in the comments section. I hope you have a great day, and I hope I will see you next time. This is the Mighty Emperor, signing off.